So to determine the test statistic, if you do it by hand, there's actually a really crazy formula. And just to show you how that works, I'm just going to go to Question Help real quick and see if they show it to me in the View an Example. Let's see what it shows us here. Okay, so here's where it starts to determine the test statistic. The first thing you need to do is determine the proportions, right? So the proportion of successes. So here it's finding the proportion of successes here, so x over n for the first sample, x over n for the second sample, and then, wait for it, there's a few other things you calculate to then go ahead and plug this whole thing in here, which can be a little crazy. So as you see, it's a pretty nutty formula. Now, StatCrunch can help us with this and cut out all of this craziness. So let me show you how to do that. So much easier. So if we go to Question Help and then go to StatCrunch, and what we do here is we're going to pull up Stat and then go to Proportion Stats, because that's what we're dealing with here is proportions. And then to sample with the summary, because we have the number of successes and the number of trials. We don't have all of the data. And then we're going to plug in all of the stuff that we know here. So for the first sample, let's see here, the number of successes is 128, and the number of observations is 252. So 128 and 252. And then for sample 2, the number of successes, let me just pull this down here, is 138, and the number of trials is 302. So 138 and 302. And then we're going to pick that we do want a hypothesis test. Now this is going to look a little different than what you plugged into your hypothesis testing over here. What they're doing is they're moving P1 and P2 to the same side of the equation to make it a little easier when plugging this into StatCrunch. So if I look over here, I'm just going to minimize this for a moment. If we have P1 equals P2, then if I get them on the same side by subtracting P2, I get P1 minus P2 equals 0. And then if I do the same thing for my alternative hypothesis, if I subtract P2 from both sides, I'll get P1 minus P2 is greater than 0. So we're going to go back to StatCrunch. Where did my StatCrunch thing go here? Let's hope all my stuff is still there. Oh, yay, it is. And so the equal 0 is there, and we want greater than 0. And then you just get to click Compute. So it's going to do all of that craziness for us. And you see here that my z-stat is 1.196. So they want me to round to the hundredths place. That's 2 decimal places. So because that 9 is going to turn into a 10, I end up getting 1.20. So let's just check that and make sure that comes out correctly. So 1.20. And there we go. So try that with StatCrunch, and then you can always try a similar problem to get a little more practice at that, and let me know if you need any more help.